Living wages, a reality for garment workers around the world.
What do they mean by a living wage? If you work and get paid, doesn't it mean you're already earning a living?
You would think so, but it's not that simple. Or at least it didn't used to be. You see, fashion brands were keen on maximizing their profits, and the workers were paying the price, both literally and figuratively. Almost all workers in the fashion industry used to not be able to procure enough food or to provide healthcare for their families because the wages they were being paid were simply too small. A lot of workers were made to endure dire conditions at their workplace, and their rights were being trampled on by factory managers in order to save up on costs.
How was that possible?
Well, for example, in the beginning of the 2020s, workers from Central, East, and Southeast Europe were paid on average the equivalent of 25% out of a living wage.
25%? That's only a quarter. How is that fair?
It's anything but fair, but that started to change about 12 years ago.
Did the workers revolt?
To some extent, yes, but that's not quite the whole picture. Workers were being mistreated and underpaid even before COVID-19, but the brand's response to the pandemic really hurt them. Workers began to speak out, to organize in unions, and to demand their rights. They needed allies in order to make big fashion brands and factories accountable for their actions. Several human rights organizations, unions, and journalists amplified workers' voices. I would know as I wrote a few articles on the issue. One of those articles was about Fashion Checker, an online tool created by the Clean Clothes campaign, which proved to be a major turning point towards living wages.
How did an online tool change things?
On its own, Fashion Checker didn't change the fashion industry, but it did put the spotlight on the workers' wages in the garment supply chain and built around it a movement that went all the way up. Fashion Checker gathered data and evidence directly from factory workers that drew wide public support. Journalists like myself started to write extensively on this issue as we followed up on worker stories. With all this support, unions and civil society organizations managed to put a lot of pressure on fashion brands and on political decision makers, and probably for the first time ever, textile workers' voices were really being heard. Global, enforceable agreements were signed in the years that followed, and reliable mechanisms within workers' reach were put into place. The path to living wages was being drawn.
You can be a part of this future, starting from right where you are, right now. Go on www.fashionchecker.org. Explore the data on fashion brands and find out which apparel and footwear brands pay their workers a living wage. Use the available resources to learn more about living wages, transparency, power dynamics, and gender in the garment industry. Tell the brands you buy from that you want your clothes made free from exploitation. Take action now.